morning, everybody. Welcome to Out of Bed. My name is Topher, and that's Matt. And we have a podcast that we normally do while we're in the same room, but because of social distancing and safety, we are not in the same room. And we are also not in the same room of our guest, which is a very nice man named Father Austin Murphy. Father Austin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Topher. Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, this is going to be weird. Matt and I already talk over each other and the guest very frequently. And with Zoom, it will be even more difficult and choppy. So we're going to try this. This is the first episode in our quarantine series. Before we get to out of bed things, Matt, you and I have not done an episode in forever.
Yeah, I worked somewhere else the last time we recorded.
That's true. I worked somewhere else the last time we recorded.
I think the last time I recorded, I was in another job. I had not been to Disney World.
Mm-hmm.
My children one of them was in kindergarten. Now both of them have gone through kindergarten. And now here we are at the apocalypse.
At the apocalypse. Before the apocalypse, I was not married. I'm married now. What up? And thank you very much. My wife's over there. She's working. She's a busy girl. But what other things were new with me? Oh, I got a new job. Yes. And I'm doing a lot more improv in the city. So hopefully once we can do improv in the city again, I will be able to talk about that on the podcast. And we do want to get some of the improv friends eventually on the podcast.
Do it.
Yeah, definitely. I want some improv fun. As you can see, Aaron is not with us today. He has a bunch of stuff going on with work right now. He is actually working from home, like most of you are. But he has like stuff he's doing at night for work. So he's very busy. But eventually we do want to get him in on the quarantine series as well. And I think that is all business. Is that all business, Matt?
That is all business. Let's start season 2.
Season 2 has begun. Father Austin Murphy, Matt, this is your first friend. This is the first time we've had your friend on a podcast.
It's actually true. Like, this is the first time I've actually booked a guest on this broadcast. And I'm really happy because it is Father Austin Murphy, a friend of more than 10 years. And he also was the celebrant at our wedding, my wife and I's wedding. And he's just somebody that I have just bounced ideas off of for the last decade plus. And I think we first had a conversation back when he was doing Jesus Goes to Disney blog. I think that was the first time I actually talked to you. So
that's right, it was.
Yeah, so welcome to Out of Bed. We've been talking about this forever.
Yeah, we've wanted to get you on for a long time. And obviously you know that because we've been bugging you about it nonstop. But I'm going to for the first time ever, I'm going to let Matt ask the question because, again, this is his friend who I consider us friends, Father Austin, but he's you are here. You got here because of Matt. So, Matt, you get to ask the question. Go ahead.
So
this is the question?
Yeah, the question.
Wow.
What gets you out of bed right now?
I'm so proud of you, Matt. You asked the question.
That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
What gets me out of bed right now, because of the quarantine, I think, is the kind of an urgency to go and celebrate Mass. Of course, we have Mass every morning. We actually have 2 Masses every morning under regular circumstances at 6:30 a.m., which is just for the birds, and it's 8:30 a.m. as well. So every other day I do one or the other of those masses, and my associate here, he does the other one. And then we have a Spanish speaking associate who is learning English. So he, once in a while, I force him to do the English mass just so he can practice, and I go on with him. But anyway, these days, what really gets me out of bed is getting over there to church to begin the Facebook live streaming of the mass to celebrate, because I know there are a huge amount of people actually who are tuning in, and not only to me, but to a lot of my brother priests who are celebrating mass. It's really important, I think, for the normalcy of the practice of the faith to be able to at least see something familiar, something regular under the weird circumstances. But getting over there to say masses, that's what gets me out of bed right now. Although not that it doesn't get me out of bed anytime, but certainly now, because I know that there's a lot of people who rely on the fact that we are celebrating mass, even if they can't be there. And it really is driving home for me the power of the mass and the power of that connection, of that sacrifice that I get to celebrate each day. But the fact is that everyone's joined into that, regardless of their location. So knowing that that's happening, and knowing that there's all those people united with me around that altar, that's a great reason to get up every morning.
Is it harder to be a priest right now than like, I mean, I know you've had your challenges in the priesthood, but is it harder right now during this era of coronavirus?
I don't know if it's hard. As far as being a priest is concerned, I don't know if it's harder. We are a bunch of people who typically work from home anyway, in a sense, because we live more or less at the church. And so that's a normal thing. But I do, and we were having a meeting last week with some pastoral leaders here in Anne Arundel County, and a couple of us commented that we feel busier now than we have been under regular circumstances, simply because we are scrambling to be tech guys for our parishes, to be able to work the cell phone so that you're not sideways when you're filming mass and that sort of thing. But at the same time, with your phone and Facebook and instant messaging and all that sort of thing, you're constantly available to people who are very stressed. And you don't want to take that too much on yourself, but you also realize that as a priest, you should be taking that on yourself to a certain degree. So it's tough, but I think it's tough in the same way that it's hard to be in any kind of service industry. That it's hard to be a doctor, it's hard to be a nurse, it's hard to work in the hospital, it's hard to work in any place where people are relying on you for various needs that they have. At the same time, though, I will say this, Matt, it has really driven home the role, the vicarious role that we play for people as the person offering the sacrifice, as the priest, that people give you their needs, they give you their worries, they give you their problems. And they're always asking you, Father, pray for this, pray for that. But now when you're gathered around that altar and you're the only one there, knowing like there's all these other people who are relying on you, it really hammers home that representative role of the priest. And I think you probably would have seen that if you watched the Pope the other day, all by himself in St. Peter's Square. That kind of singularity, and the fact that all of the people of the world, well, in theory, we're tuning into that, and we're benefiting also from that worship, that prayer that only he was doing, but we were all joined to that. I feel that myself, even if I just go to do a holy hour and ask people, what do you want me to pray for? And it's something that I will be honest, I do take for granted from time to time, but I think everybody in any vocation takes certain things for granted. But it certainly has been hammered home to me now. And I'm grateful for that, really, I am. I hope I never take it for granted again, but it's a powerful experience. And it is a regular part of priesthood. But because we don't feel that pressure pushed on us all that time, we do lose sight of it, I think.
Yeah. You did mention like you all have to become tech guys now.
Yeah.
Is there Like, what's the most difficult? Have you found anything particularly difficult about the process of live streaming mass, getting more messages to your parishioners in an electronic format or a video or audio format?
That's never really been I've never really had an issue with that, Topher. I like tech stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I geek out over it, but it's not like I live it. I don't have a studio or anything like that set up or anything like along those lines. But I do have a little camcorder, I've done 2 video updates for my parishioners, which I'm doing on a weekly basis, kind of like every week in the bulletin I put a pastor's note, kind of just saying what's on my mind at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But this time I'm just kind of updating people on what's going on, what's give them a sense of normalcy, that we have things under control here at the parish. Things are happening, inviting them to continue to give regularly, because that certainly is a stress that's being placed on a lot of places these days.
Yeah.
So I can do that, and then I can play with it on my little, iMovie editor, and then throw it up on YouTube. That's not a big deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
The frustrations are sometimes if you're like my cell signal, my data signal in the church for some reason wasn't working last week, and I couldn't film the mass. So that drove me nuts, because it's important that I know that people are looking for it, and if they don't find it, they're going to go away, and then we got a lot of really good things to say, and I don't want them to lose interest in that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a huge challenge for me, because like I said, I mean, Matt talked about, I was blogging back when blogging was cool. It's not, I don't know how cool it is anymore, but we still do it.
I still think
but,
it's cool.
It's retro now. Blogging is retro.
Oh
now.
yeah. I'll put on my knit cap when I do it next time. And
yeah, in like 5 months, all the TikTok kids are going to be so into blogging because they think it's vintage.
Yeah.
So you're already ahead of the curve. It's fine.
Yeah, I definitely know what it means to be vintage, but yeah, at any rate, I don't have an issue, but I know that there are a lot of my priest friends who do. I don't know if there was a video from a priest from, I think, Italy.
Oh, yeah.
Who was trying to film his mass and turned on the filters, and he had like a gangster hat on and sunglasses, and there were birds tweeting around and stuff, and God bless him.
With that, do you feel any so this is the first time we have done video for our podcast. And right now I am really self-conscious about how often I'm taking drinks.
Dude, go slower.
Well, this is how I normally drink on the podcast, but I've never had eyes judging me, and now I feel like I do have eyes judging me.
We were judging you, don't worry.
That's fine. But if I'm in mass, I am somebody that I do get easily distracted, and I will look at the stained glass, or I will look at other people around me, or like my eyes wander during mass sometimes. But when I am watching mass at home on my couch, I've already seen everything around me before. I don't need to look around. So I'm looking straight at the TV, and I'm looking straight at the priest. Do you feel like do you at all feel like more of a sense of like they don't have anywhere else they're like definitely looking at me? Like, I don't know if you ever got stage fright before with mass. I imagine myself, if I was a priest, I always think that I would have butterflies right before mass. Obviously because I'm about to do one of the coolest things in the world, which is serve mass, but also because I'm about to have a lot of eyes on me.
No, I've never had that issue. And frankly, when you only have yourself and a camera, and we have a lady who comes each day to make sure the camera's facing the right way and all that sort of thing.
Yep.
I do have to keep myself in mind that the congregation is actually inside that little fisheye lens, on my iPhone. And so I have to make sure that every once in a while I actually attend to that I look at the phone. So like when I'm preaching and that sort of thing, but I've always been pretty comfortable in the sanctuary at the altar and celebrating mass. I don't mind that. I never have, and I think that that's just part of it's just part of my personality. I'm really not a super extrovert, but as far as the priestly ministry is concerned and all, you kind of have to be. You have to be on at least.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm used to being on. I do get nervous, but I don't get nervous before, the simple daily masses and that sort of thing. I get nervous before weddings and funerals and, big things like that. Even though I've done them many, many times, I still get, I have to psych myself up. And then once it's underway, I kind of relax and settle into the groove a little bit. But, I not now. I don't, it's interesting to hear your perspective as somebody watching from home, to think, all you have to look at is me. And so, I have to make sure I pick out a nice vestment or something that's not.
Did I just instill stage fright in you?
Yeah, now I'm going to be wondering, what am I doing? Did I pick my nose? I hope I didn't touch my face. I just did. I just touched my face. I can't believe it. But, I just.
Now's not the time, Father Austin.
Yeah, I'm sorry. These hands.
14 more days of quarantine.
Yep.
Do it.
Well, the thing is like, for the first time, kind of jumping off that, like, priests are like getting ratings, like live ratings on Facebook. It's like, all right,
yeah,
100 people are joining in at this moment, and it's like, well, let me email my brother priest and see if he got 100 people watching at this time.
I'm thinking like to see my brother priest doing that, because I don't know if obviously not all of us are used to doing it, and we're learning from each other, and once in a while we get a little directive or assistance from downtown saying, if you haven't done this before, here's an easy way to do it, and to teach them how to do it, because I've seen some of my brothers who are just not techie at all, and it's funny to watch them because it's just so awkward. In a charming way. It's awkward in a very charming way, but it's really funny. In fact, it's, when we're all through this, hopefully there'll be a nice bloopers clip of all of this stuff, like what happened, during quarantine when Father so-and-so said mass and it was upside down, or I don't know. It's just fun in that way. I mean, it's serious business, but what it's getting out of us, a lot of us, is showing that we would want to do this stuff anyway, because everybody, we'll point to a church like Nativity up in north of Baltimore is, they've been on the cutting edge of all that technological stuff anyway, and everybody wants to try to put something like that into play, and now we're forced to put something like that into play. So I think it's teaching us how to do certain things that right now we're sort of in a wartime, and then how does that wartime technology translate into everyday business for the
ordinary
church.
Ordinary time. I know that one of the priests that, like, Frankie has been helping some people do what you're saying, like showing them how to do the live streaming and filming, because she's a videographer. And one of the things that one of the priests she was talking to was saying was that a lot of jobs are finding out that like people are finding out, oh, I don't need to go into my job every day. Like, I can very easily do my job from home. And a lot of people are thinking that when we get back to normal life, that you might see more and more work from home schedules being enacted for people.
Yeah.
And one of the things the priest was saying was that he was worried that people can think, oh, well, when the quarantine was happening, I went to mass online, so I can just go to mass online every week, and that become their new norm. And that was like a worry that he had kind of expressed.
Mm-hmm. I can see that, but I also know that there are people who are not regular mass attenders who are seeing mass. I know that there are people who would not normally come to church can actually see it happening, and so I think there's two sides to that coin. I do feel that people are really champing at the bit to come to church and actually receive Jesus, and to be able to touch him and all that kind of stuff, and for crying out loud, the Pope absolved the entire planet the other day, so everyone's ready to come. Of course, being in quarantine doesn't take long to get back onto the sin wagon there, but it's but still, it's amazing that I think what this is teaching us is that we don't want anything standing in the way of somebody's encounter with Jesus. And so whether that is, I've been away from the church for so long. Here's another thing, like we've been hearing, well, we can't do it anymore after today's directives, but we had 2 weekends of drive-through confessions in our parking lot, which were really popular, actually. We did, this last weekend was actually busier than the weekend before. And people were coming who hadn't been to confession for years and years. And they said, this feels safer than going into the box. And so it was an opportunity for them to avail themselves of the sacrament, to receive mercy, and that God wants to give them anyway. But they were able to actually celebrate that sacrament, and now they don't have to go to confession the next time and say, it's been 25 years since my last confession, and feel bad about that, because the clock starts ticking again, and that's kind of what you want to keep teaching people. So there's a lot of really big graces, I think, that are coming out of this. And we just have to be attentive to them and take advantage of those graces, because we have people's attention as the church. And the challenge for the church and our ministers is, what do you do with that attention? You can't just point it on yourself, obviously. You have to be able to say, okay, here, I got your attention. Let me just introduce you to Jesus a little better, so you know him even deeper and can actually receive him in the sacraments and all of that. So I'm not sure if people are just going to make online mass their norm. Maybe some people will, because they're like, well, I don't have to get up, and I can just, I can go, I don't have to wear pants to mass, so I can just watch it on TV.
Yeah.
I will declare this: if you watch mass without pants, it doesn't count. I think you have to have pants on for mass.
Oh,
shoes, socks optional, but pants definitely.
Frankie, Father Austin said I have to wear pants when we watch mass now. Father Austin said I have to wear pants when we watch mass now.
I'm laying that one down.
He said it doesn't count if I don't wear pants.
So here's the irony to me, like watching all of this happen. Not about the pants and Topher.
I hope you're not watching that happen.
Yeah, the idea that like the dioceses around the country, and the Archdiocese of Baltimore has done this, like mass for shut-ins.
Yeah.
For decades on TV. It's a part of our natural muscle as a church. It's just a matter of going, yes, and also flipping the switch to broadcast it to Facebook and to Twitter and to IGTV or whatever. Like, it's all there. We've already been doing it. It's just a matter of going, oh yeah, what about that?
Right.
And like, I used to bang that drum when I was working in church digital media. It was like, you're already doing this. Why not also this? And so like, I feel like if these rhythms are built, they'll continue on. And not necessarily for the people sitting at home, but for the people that run the church, that they'll start to go, we can have the community here, but we can also do this, because we do have shut-ins, we do have the sick. But I think people are going to be chomping at the bit to be part of something bigger than themselves very soon.
Yeah, they want to get the heck out. They want to come. I really think they do. It's going to be so strange to celebrate Holy Week with no people.
Oh yeah, and I think
it's going to be painful. I think. I mean, spiritually painful. It's going to be.
Yeah, I think one of the things. So, like I said, Frankie is helping people, other churches, like film things, and when her and her mom have gone to film, the priest has said, "Do you want to take communion?" and has pulled them aside and given them communion, and they were so excited about doing that, and I love that. But she expressed to me the other day that she felt guilty almost because other people aren't able to do this. And we have Father Austin, this is the most Catholic episode of this podcast that we've ever had. So there are people
by a landslide.
By a landslide.
I think so. I've listened, guys. I've listened. So.
Okay, yeah. So this is
We've kept our language rather clean too. This is good.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't had to tell you only get one F-bomb. I'm sure you won't use it, but you only get one.
That's good to know, though. That's good to know.
Yeah. But I think she was saying she felt guilty because other people couldn't, and I lost my train of thought. Where was I? I was talking.
Well,
It was
we
off the
were
rails now.
talking about how everybody was kind of like separated from the mass, and that this is an opportunity for us now. But I know where I can understand how she feels.
Yeah.
Because it is a privilege to be there, and it's always a privilege to be there.
Yeah.
It's
definitely.
just it feels different when you're the only one there, when you're fulfilling a role. So, for example, we have somebody who operates the little camera for us to make sure that it's positioned properly. And after mass, she'll receive communion, and I know that that's a great gift for her. Mm-hmm. I would say to anybody, even Frankie and them, if you're there doing that, really just keep in mind that when you receive communion, you're united to everyone who receives communion. It's part of the communion of the saints, and you're receiving for them too.
Yep.
And that you carry them with you, and that for their intentions, if you're able to be there, you're doing that for them. Like that's what I do when I go and I can pray before the Blessed Sacrament. I did a holy hour on Friday, and it was just nothing but the monstrance on Facebook Live. I talked at the beginning, I talked at the end, but it was an hour of just looking at the monstrance, which is what adoration is. Mm-hmm. But I did it because I knew that there were people who really would have liked to be there, and they asked me to pray for this, pray for that, and I had all those intentions with me, and I think that we can always do that, regardless of if you're going to mass and you have a loved one who's sick who can't be there, you bring that intention with you. I mean, that this is part of participating in mass. It's part of, what I like, because we have half of our community here is Spanish speaking. Their verbiage is, asistir a la misa. Instead of saying attend the mass, they assist mass. Mm-hmm. And that's what everyone says. If you're going to mass, asistir a la misa. And, for me, that's a beautiful way of recognizing that no matter who you are going to mass, you're participating in that. You're one of the ministers in a sense, because you're there offering the prayer as well.
My train of thought came back into the station.
Great.
What I was saying was that we don't this is the most Catholic episode that we've had. And we have said a lot of things that some non-Catholics or non-Christians might not understand. So what I was hoping you might be able to do is, could you explain from the Catholic side why being able to physically receive communion is so important, what that means to us, and why many of us are longing and hurting that we are not able to be doing that physically?
Sure. It just comes from our Catholic understanding of what the Eucharist is. The Eucharist is the gift of Holy Communion, which is the bread and wine that we offer on the altar. Through the prayers of the priest and the action of the Holy Spirit, they become the body and blood of Jesus. And that's the sacrament. And that they are no longer simply bread and wine, but they take on, they become in their very essence, they become the body and blood of Christ. That's what they are. And that through our participating in that, for our receiving that, the body and the blood of Jesus, by eating the bread and drinking the wine, we are joining ourselves to Christ. We're doing what he told us to do. When he gave us the Eucharist at the Last Supper, he said, do this in memory of me. And he also tells us about the Eucharist in the 6th chapter of St. John's Gospel, that unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you do not have life within you. And so by receiving that, again, this is our way of number one, uniting ourselves most intimately with Christ by sharing in his sacrifice on the cross, which is what is represented there on the altar. And then by being nourished by that, we are then empowered and strengthened, of course, to go out and do the work of disciples. So the reception of communion is very important. It's not just something where it just watching it. I mean, just watching it certainly is meritorious, but actually receiving it, because he says, take this, all of you, and eat of it. Take this just chalice and drink from it. and that in doing that, we are proclaiming his death and resurrection, and we're also gaining that spiritual grace that comes with being united to Jesus in that blessed sacrament. So it's not just a fancy ritual. It's not just some reward for showing up at Mass on Sunday morning. It's actually touching Christ. It's actually, being there present at the cross and receiving the benefits of that sacrifice by, eating his body and drinking his blood. So that's what we understand about the Eucharist. That's why it's so important to us. And for those who really, really fully understand that and appreciate it, that's why they're so put off at this point by not being able to go.
No.
Some people, a lot of people refer to the pastor and his flock. How much do you miss your flock right now?
A lot more than I thought I would. I really do. I was thinking about that as I was back when we still could have 10 people gathering, and I had the church open. We had people there, and I will say most of them were from our Hispanic community because their devotion is just different, a lot more deeper, I think, than some of our Anglo. Not that the Anglos don't have a deep spirituality. It's just their expression of it is just a lot more passionate, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's that Latin Mediterranean aspect of it. But just seeing them praying along and being there with them, it was such a beautiful thing for me as their pastor to see them. It's like a father watching their kids get things right, or say good things to each other. And Matt, I think you've been proud of your kids, doing certain things where you didn't even know you were watching or something like that. And seeing that, it was just so beautiful. And I'm thinking, you know what, this is something that I get to be part of every single time I'm gathered with them. And now I can't be gathered with them. And I missed them. And so I posted on Facebook actually about how much I missed them. I mean, and I think that all of our priests really do miss our people, miss gathering around the altar and celebrating Mass together and giving them Jesus and proclaiming the word to them and nourishing them in that way. I mean, certainly we can do it digitally by Facebook and all that, but it's different than when they're right there in front of you and you can see the tear marks going down their face and stuff like that. So I really do miss them. I mean, a shepherd isn't a shepherd if there aren't any sheep.
Yeah.
He's just some guy wandering around in an empty field. And that's kind of how I feel once in a while, so I have to kind of bring that to prayer and realize that, I am still a shepherd and those people are still there. And that, this is the way I have of reaching out to them right now.
Yeah. When you look at, I really, here I am touching my eye.
Stop touching your face, Matt. Matt, stop touching your face.
Have you started to think about the first one or two things, whether it is church or whether it's not church, that you want to do once this is all over?
What's the first meal you want to have when you get out of prison, Father Austin?
I'm going to Pizza John's in Essex.
Oh, no.
Just because I know Matt doesn't like it and be angry about that. I don't know what I'm looking forward to really seeing my mom and hugging her, or either my brothers and sisters. And I'm not a hugger except for those people, but for some reason I have to be because I'm the pastor here. And people are like, that doesn't matter. You're a hugger. And they hug me.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm not a hugger. No, I'm definitely not.
I said I wasn't, but they just don't want to listen to that. Now, if I were to go downtown and just start doing that, I'd be arrested. But never mind. I'm digressing. I that human touch and especially for the people that you really love, I look forward to that. I look forward to being able to, I can talk to my mom on the phone. We're actually hooking her up with, I think, the Zoom business so that we can see her and do that sort of thing. But, it is hard. It's hard to be isolated that way. Mm-hmm. I thought it would be a lot easier for me as an introvert, but you do long for that. You just long to go and just see somebody. So I think hopefully we're all going to appreciate that even more, running into people in the store or, and the Pope had a great reflection on that. There'll be a day when we actually can take selfies of our, with each other, with our faces right next to each other. And, maybe I can touch my face at some point. I don't know.
I banged the drum with Casey for the longest time, my wife, obviously, about how I wanted to go to the movies and how I hadn't been to the movies in forever. So we went to this parish get-together a couple of weeks ago. It was a bull roast. And I bid on a movie basket that had a bunch of movie gift certificates. And sure enough, 3 days later, everything was shut down. And I was like, oh, come on.
Sucks. Yeah, I like movies too, so that would be something that.
But it gets me, like, as an introvert, like, I yearn for community in some fashion, like that communal experience of, like, A, going to church, but B, like, also going to the movies and, like, having those, like, seminal experiences with a crowd.
Yeah.
And I sure wish I hadn't paid $95 for that movie basket.
Hey, you still have them, so it'll happen.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I hope they still exist when this is all over.
Disney Plus will have streamed everything by that point.
Right?
That does.
Frozen 3 is coming out next week. Get your kids ready.
Well, that's the thing. I think some of the movies, I know some movies were talking about they were just going to skip theaters altogether and just go straight to streaming services or digital. I know Onward, the new Disney movie with Tom
Holland.
See
that in the theater before we got shut down.
Oh, nice. I know they were putting that out on Disney
digital now.
Plus. Yeah. And I know that there was talk about whether or not Black Widow was going to do the same when that comes out. And I think they've said they're just going to go straight to theaters. But I think they might eventually – it'll go to streaming a lot sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But this does lead me into I actually – this is the first time – Father Austin, you should feel very special because I actually asked people for questions for you. Which I've never done.
I'll feel special if they actually ask questions.
I got I got 3 questions for you.
Okay.
Which is more than we've ever gotten.
I hope you feel special now.
It is more than we've ever gotten. Granted, we've never asked for people to ask questions.
Okay.
But Megan Doyle asked what your favorite movie is. And she asked another question, but I want to hear your favorite movie first.
Wow, my favorite movie, which I don't know if this might surprise you, because Star Wars is such my life that I love that stuff, but it is not a Star Wars movie. My favorite movie, I think, is probably... well, it's either Back to the Future, the first one, or Ghostbusters.
Ooh,
the original Ghostbusters. Mm-hmm. Those two. Just for some reason, those have just stuck with me forever, and they hang in there for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then a close third is Willow. No, I'm just kidding. I like Willow, but I wouldn't put that there.
Of all the Lucasfilm movies, Willow.
Changed my life, man.
Ever since Rise of Skywalker came out, which I excuse me, wow, that was
formal, old chap.
Thank you. Again, this is something that happens on the podcast normally with audio, but something feels more shameful about it with video, that you can see me burping, and I'm so sorry about that.
That's all right.
But Frankie's
said that so sincere. That's all right.
That's all right. It's not all right. But Frankie is going to roll her eyes because she's heard me say this a million times. But ever since Rise of Skywalker came out, which I enjoyed Rise of Skywalker a lot, I've been very adamant that the least interesting thing about the Star Wars universe is the movies. Like, I think everything else surrounding Star Wars, the books, the TV shows, the animated series, the toys, the video games, all of that has infinitely the game, like card games, all of that has infinitely more, I think, interesting storytelling than the movies did. And that's personal to me because you guys grew up with Star Wars, I think more prevalently than I did. Like my Star Wars movies were that I saw in theaters were the prequels. But I think that's really interesting, and I do want to hear just rant about Star Wars for a little bit, Father Austin. I know you love it. Just talk about it for a little bit.
Before, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm
Oh, sorry.
shooting daggers at you,
Hmm?
and they should be arriving very soon, like coming out of my eyeballs.
I
Like,
got him.
that's the kind of heresy
Well done.
that we cannot tolerate on this show. You have been fired.
That's right, Matt. Let the hate flow through you.
I don't believe this.
That was some heinous ranting there.
I'm just saying the Clone Wars animated series is infinitely better than anything any of the prequels had done.
All right, Father Austin, you're now my co-host.
Wow, he's
All right,
gone.
see you guys. Bye.
What happened?
He's done. He's over.
Where's he going? He's out of here.
He's fired.
He's gonna
I'm
go
the one
work a
controlling
little
this
more,
recording.
I think.
So, Rise of Skywalker, what'd you think?
I was satisfied with it. I found it a nice wrap up to the thing that everything that Star Wars had become. I think that everyone got their little ending, their little arc ending. At least the people I cared about did.
Yeah, all the fan service moments throughout that movie.
I found that that was satisfying to me. I think Luke got his ending. The fact that he was already dead made but he was able to get his ending. The best part for me was when he brought his X-wing up and landed it for Rey.
The
And
little
you hear Yoda's theme playing there while it's happening. He's like, the one thing he couldn't do when he started was the last thing he did as the Jedi Master, and that was really cool. I found that I geeked out over that. That was nice. There were a lot of moments in there that there were some. I think with 7, 8, and 9, there were a lot of what the heck is going on here moments. But it's not my movie. Mm-hmm. It's not my universe that I created. I just live in it, so I don't get to make those decisions. Mm-hmm. So the fact that the movies were what they were really didn't irritate me as much as some of the whining online would indicate. I found there were a lot of redeemable moments, and some people think The Rise of Skywalker was the sequel to The Force Awakens, except you couldn't do it without The Last Jedi, and there were some profound moments there, even if that's not the movie I would have made. But I really liked. I really enjoyed seeing Ben Solo kind of climb out of the mess that he was falling into, and the fact that he was not a person who had it all together like Vader did in the original, 4, 5, and 6. He didn't have it together. He was very insecure, and he was looking for something. He was always looking for something, and he finally found it. That Rey was able to give that to him, even in spite of Palpatine being there. And I think that's what kind of ended everything well for me. I found that the idea that it's not, and this is what all 9 of them teach me, because I've been following this for 44 years of my life. I mean, I was there when they opened, in 1977. I was there, and what this taught me was that the struggle between the struggle of the Star Wars films, there's action and stuff and story that happens all around that, but the struggle of those films isn't between the light and the dark, and it's not between the Sith and the Jedi even, although they personify that. It's between chaos and balance. It's between a lack of order and order. And the fact that, the Jedi tried to, swing things to their side created a lot of problems, which, by the way, are well presented in the Clone Wars series. So I do think the Clone Wars series is spectacular.
Oh yeah, I
Not
agree.
terribly happy with what they're doing with season 7, but that's okay. That's whatever. But the series as a whole is spectacular, I think. But the fact that the Jedi were trying to pull the balance all over to the light was, first of all, very prideful on their part, which created a lot of blindness for them and created a lot of problems. Not that the dark side has any merit to itself at all, but the fact that there's a balance, and that's what the prophecy of the Chosen One was supposedly all about. That's what Rey apparently brings, and of course, that's what Rey, I think, represents, and that's why we see the yellow lightsaber at the end, because the yellow lightsaber represents balance, not a neutrality in a sense, but more of a balance. That's what the temple guards would carry, and that is not film related. That is part of the universe that Topher thinks is so wonderful. So much better than the movies themselves.
I was fine with the cartoons, but he started talking about the card games, and
I'm just saying, okay, Sabacc is an amazing card game. It is the same exact card game that Lando loses the Millennium Falcon to Han in, which we saw in the amazing movie Solo. Sorry,
I love Solo.
I actually enjoyed Solo. A lot of people crap on Solo.
Fair and square, guys. It's fair and square.
Yeah. But anyway, I like Sabacc. I think Sabacc is a very fun card game. It's especially great if you play it while putting the Cantina band theme on loop and just let it keep playing over and over while you play. It does make for a very good evening with your friends.
Let me ask
you. So basically, what Topher said, by the way,
mm-hmm.
his previous heretical statement,
yes,
would also include the holiday special, would it not?
Oh
yeah, yep.
Who doesn't love a good Life Day, everybody?
Hey, B. Arthur wants to sing you a song right now. Everybody gather around the cantina.
Yeah, you want a good night. You play Sabacc while that loops over and over again.
Carney's got a joke for you.
I'm going to need a few more beverages. Also, by the way, we normally do share what beverages we are consuming while on this show. This is the first time we've been doing the show remotely. So what's everybody having to drink?
Father Austin, you want to go?
I have a glass of Teeling's Irish whiskey.
Ooh.
on the rocks, although the rocks have melted.
Oh, that's fine. Very nice. Matt, what do you have?
I have the very classy Captain Morgan's Coke Zero.
Captain Morgan Coke Zero. Nice. So I have been moving around a little bit. I am not working at all this week. I'm on like a week on, week off schedule. So this is my first week of not having to do anything. So I have had a few, and I started with a nice rum and Coke. This is just Coke now. And then I just found these. This is Southern Tier Distilling Company craft vodka seltzer, and the flavor I'm drinking right now is black cherry and pomegranate.
Why not just black cherry? Why did they have to add the pomegranate?
This is one of the, like, I know, like, the normal ones, like White Claw and Truly, they're just like, here's a flavor. And I'm finding these, like, hipster ones that are like, here's a flavor you love, and one that you probably don't like that much.
Yeah, it's when salad shows up with pizza. It's like, oh, pizza party. And now here's salad.
It makes me feel a little bit more balanced, though. Like earlier I had one, which was it was watermelon cucumber, and somehow the cucumber made it feel healthier.
Yeah, definitely.
Does that check out?
A lot of antioxidants in that pomegranate, so
exactly, that's what I'm saying.
It's you either do that or you have to work out. So
yeah, that's true, and everybody knows I'm not going to be doing that.
There we go.
So, Father Austin, I got to know, did you play Sabacc at Galaxy's Edge?
I did not. I loved Galaxy's Edge, though. I was just in heaven. And I got to experience a lot of it. And I didn't get to do the Sabacc, but I did get to fly the Millennium Falcon.
Nice.
And I did get to go through the Rise of the Resistance, although it broke down twice, but I was able to finally get on it. And it was worth the aggravation, really. I mean, it was fantastic. And then I did, one of the last evenings we were there, I got to go to the lightsaber workshop and create. Oh, it's here. It's here.
Nice.
Oh, yes, please.
I got to create this.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
This is my lightsaber, and actually the batteries are dead in it because I may have played with it a little bit. But I have to replace the batteries. But you go into this workshop with about 12 or 15 other people, and the average age of the people there were me. I think there were two little boys there with their dad and their uncle, and we were putting these things together. And they had assistants there, and they gave you the spare parts that you were assembling into the lightsaber. You got to choose your kyber crystal, or it chose you.
Yes.
And
much like the wand.
Much like the wand in Harry Potter, but you put it in here, and then set it all together, and then you stick it into a little slot in the side, and it hooks up to its blade. And then you turn it on, and you lift it out, and everybody holds them up like Knights of the Round Table or something. And it's a spiritual experience. It really is. I cried at the end of it. It was. I said, I've waited 40 years to hold one of these things. A real lightsaber in my hand. And
is it heavy? Is it heavy?
Yes, it's got real weight to it. It's like it's metal.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
What color is the blade?
Yeah. What color is your kyber crystal?
It's blue.
Blue.
Nice.
Although you can actually buy other crystals and then replace them, and it changes the LED in the blade. So,
okay. So
the blades are pretty heavy duty, so you can kind of whack people with it, and it's not going to break.
So is the blade like a separate thing that you have somewhere else that you like screw?
Yeah, I have it. It's in the other room because I was going to replace the batteries, but I need to go get the batteries, and now I'm in lockdown, so I don't have anything to play with. But at any rate,
what batteries does it run on? What batteries does it run on?
It's got, I think, 3 AAA batteries.
Okay.
Also known as the Force.
Yes, and the Force, of course, does that.
Do you play the Force music every time you play with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
Fantastic.
I definitely understand the getting like choked up while you're making it, though. I know. So for Frankie and I's wedding, I have a friend. Like I've bought like cheap championship wrestling belts from like Walmart before that are like little plastic toys and they're kid sized. But I actually have a friend who has like a legit replica, and he let me borrow it for the wedding to use for like entrance.
Oh, nice.
So I definitely I remember getting it from him, and I put it around my waist, and I do remember like feeling like this feels special.
Like you were headlining a pay-per-view.
Plus, you were married.
Yeah, well, this was before.
I mean, that also is beautiful.
Yes, that's beautiful too. Yes, but this is before the wedding. Like I borrowed it from him a few days before.
Okay.
And was like, I was just like in my house, like putting it on, looking at myself in the mirror, like I'm the champ. Like this is.
Champ is here.
The champ is here, and now. I'm married, and that's even cooler than being the champion. So, or equally as cool.
Almost.
You have to say that. Frankie's in the corner, huh?
Yeah, I have to say that because Frankie's.
She doesn't even know. No, she doesn't. Okay.
I don't think I've ever told you this, Topher, but I actually did in my wedding reception. I actually did a wrestling theme thing too.
What? Why have you not told me this?
When I'm not sure if Austin, you were there at this point, or if you might have left because you wanted some piece of your dignity. But like,
if the dancing had already started, I probably was gone. I do remember the wonderful buffalo pizza or something like that. Yeah, buffalo chicken pizza or something like that.
The barbecue chicken pizza. Yeah,
that's it. Yes,
That's good memory.
I remember that.
So when the garter belt was taken off Casey, I played Real American from, or the DJ played Real American from Hulk Hogan's entrance.
That's good. That's good.
And I was doing the ear cup thing and all that stuff to the crowd. And I was like that one moment of extrovert happening there for me. And then I was like,
Yeah.
I really just want to go eat this shrimp and barbecue chicken pizza now. People are looking at me.
Yeah.
Good
I
for
like
you for piecing out, Father Austin.
I think I had this like moment beforehand of like talking to Frankie. I was like, we were very meticulously picking our entrance music for what wrestlers' entrance theme we were going to come out to. And I had like these visions of it being this cool, like slow, like this slow, confident walk. I've got the belt around my shoulder, Frankie in my arm, and just like, yeah. And we picked Sami Zayn, who is a wrestler that I love, and he comes out to a very fun poppy ska song, and all semblance of looking cool like flew out the window the second the music started, because I was just so excited. I like, obviously I had Frankie right there next to me, so I'm like pumped that we just got married and all these people are cheering for us. So like all semblance of being cool just went out the window, and I'm just like dancing around like that. It was so.
I don't remember the
not
Muppet
cool.
Show breaking out at your reception.
It was pretty. I was skanking, which for those who don't know is how you dance to ska music, and that was. It was not cool at all.
Really good memory was actually part of my wedding prep with Father Austin was seeing the Muppets.
Yeah. That was essential to it.
Yeah.
How old are you two?
The movie that came out in 2011.
Oh, I don't remember.
With Jason Segel.
Oh,
yeah.
That
Amy Adams.
That movie was 2011?
Right.
Wow. Jeez.
Casey was there too.
Yep.
I just don't remember that. Did that movie do well? I don't remember much.
It did
about
decent. It did decent. It's a sequel. It didn't do very well.
Yeah.
Disney doesn't know what to do with the Muppets.
That's very true. Disney doesn't know what to do with a lot of the properties that they have scavenged from other people.
If you ever want to see something sad but something still fun, go to the Muppet Theater at Hollywood Studios down in Disney.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's sort of abandoned, like the movie in 2011, but like then when they bring out Sweetums at a certain point during the movie, it is the most geek-tastic moment. It's like, holy cow, they got the real Sweetums out here in the front of the movie.
I did have another question for you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Audience questions.
Sorry, I had two more questions. One I'm going to save for the end because it's more of a deep one that I want to kind of finish on. But Mary Scott asked a question. Scotty asked a question. And I'm trying to find it because it's not letting me look at comments.
You want me to look for it?
Yeah, can you look for it? I have an idea of what it was, but the Out of Bed Facebook page is not letting me view comments for some reason.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Our Facebook is heavily updated.
This is true.
You guys should be watching the Facebook all the time.
Yeah, this is very true. The Facebook also Facebook just got a new layout, so it's very confusing. Although we do have dark mode, which I'm very excited about.
Mary Rebecca, Mary Scott saying, "What's your favorite bridge?"
Oh, good question.
My favorite what? My
bridge.
Favorite bridge?
Yeah.
A question you could ask.
As in a musical bridge, or
like a physical bridge that you cross,
or a musical bridge. However, you take that question.
Oh,
yes. What your favorite bridge is?
I like the bridge in it's in that Styx song.
Mm-hmm.
Come Sail Away.
Come
Sail Away. However, this is what Scotty wants to know.
Yes.
Okay.
Scotty
my
doesn't
favorite
know.
bridge. Wow.
Matt?
Is probably the it's probably the Ponte Sant'Angelo in Rome. It actually leads up to the Castel Sant'Angelo near the Vatican, as you're getting near the Vatican, and it's not a it's a footbridge. It's not a driving bridge. You can't, so you can walk along, and there's always Africans selling all sorts of strange crap. But they also have these beautiful angels up there who are all holding implements of the crucifixion. Mm-hmm. So they have the stick with the hyssop on the end of it. They have the spear. They have the nails. They have the crown of thorns. They have the cross. It's really a beautiful bridge. And it was nearby where we lived and where we could wander around when we had free time. So that's one. I am a great fan, by the way, of the Bay Bridge here in Maryland.
I knew you were going to say that.
I really do love it. I just like the Bay. So, but for the beauty's sake, I do like the Ponte Sant'Angelo.
Nice.
Hey, can you ever figure out why people create all these stories about how the Bay Bridge is the most feared bridge imaginable? I always see this, and I'm like, since when is the Bay Bridge the most feared bridge?
I don't find it particularly terrifying.
I'm afraid
of heights, but I would not want to go. I've seen these bridges that are in the mountains that span miles up and stuff, and I would not get on that. Forget that.
Yeah. Right.
I will say Frankie is not a fan of the Bay Bridge. Is that correct? The Bay Bridge? She will do it if she has to. She's not a fan.
All right, she's got to do it.
Yeah.
She's got to do it.
You can always go up through Cecil County and then go down to the beach that way.
That's true. Yeah, which she normally does. She will do anything she can to avoid that bridge.
Yeah, because it's like you just go across the Susquehanna Bridge, right?
Yeah. To be fair, I think she just isn't a fan of bridges, which is true for many people. I think some people just don't like bridges. I don't know if it's more the Bay Bridge that we're saying that the Bay Bridge, like somebody was saying the Bay Bridge is the scariest bridge, which we don't. I think it's not any more scary than any other bridge.
I mean, you would think the prospect of going across a bridge and into Cecil County would be pretty scary. But
maybe. I don't know. That was more of an answer than I.
Gepharobia is the fear of crossing bridges.
Oh, see, we're learning something on this podcast.
I just looked that up. Gepharobia or Gepharobia, something like that.
That's beautiful.
Oh. Yeah.
So what's the third question?
So that one I'm gonna save. I want to talk to Father Austin more before I ask that one, because that one's like a deep thinker one that I think it's a good cap. But I've got more questions for Father Austin before that. So we've talked about what's getting you out of bed immediately, like right now. Obviously, as a priest, Mass is normally getting you out of bed for many reasons. But are there any other things, deep or not deep, that get you out of bed on a regular basis without a quarantine being involved?
Well, I mean, not really. I mean, first and foremost, that's really what I like to do. I like to celebrate our faith and to make that faith accessible to as many people as I can. And so it's one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of connecting pop culture and elements of our faith and using them to kind of illustrate and speak to one another, because I think a lot of us are immersed in it. A lot of us are immersed in the kind of banal pop culture attitude that it's how many lines from The Office can we quote and that kind of stuff. But and that's not necessarily a horrible thing, but if you can use that then to bring in what is this, is this similar to something in our own faith and all. It's what the idea of Jesus Goes to Disney World is about. It's about seeing elements of our faith in everything, and because we're Catholic, that's such a reality for us, because Catholicism is such an incarnate faith that there's elements of it everywhere, and that there's an imagination that goes along with it, so that you can see connections with your faith everywhere. So it's one of the things why when people say may the force be with you, and people automatically want to respond and with your spirit, it's those kind of things, and seeing those connections. And sometimes they're forced on my part because they're like dad jokes, which I really don't mind being accused of, because it's just being able to make our faith accessible to people in a non-threatening way to them, in a way that's almost sneaky for them. They're like, oh wow, I can actually still like this stuff and feel some kind of connection to my faith as well. So whether it's and for me, a lot of it is sci-fi, because sci-fi does speak to a lot of transcendent truths. And I think that it's supposed to. That our faith does the same thing, obviously, because our faith is transcendent truth. That when you can see where all of those things intersect and they connect, and almost see it with the way I see it is sometimes I feel like Neo from the Matrix, where you're just seeing the code instead of the actual reality that's being presented. You're like, wow, when I'm watching Doctor Who, I'm saying, this is just like, God's sacrificial action on our behalf, or that's something like that.
Right.
So, and it excites me to experience more of that stuff and say, I'm going to go to a movie and I know that I'm going to see something that's going to connect to our faith. And then I'm going to be able to use that next weekend in a homily, or when I'm talking to young people or something like that. I don't get to do that as much now, because a lot of my ministry up until about 10 years ago or so was really, really youth focused. Mm-hmm. I think I met Frankie through Highlight, actually. I think she was a participant in that. I worked with Matt's wife. That's where I met Matt. Actually, I think I met you at Highlight as well, didn't I?
You did meet me
coming out. He was coming out to visit. I think he and Cassandra really touched base in Highlight, but and I don't think he cared about who else was there. But I do remember him coming to talk there, and I did a lot of work with our young people, and they're just, sometimes they can be dismissed as not caring about the deep spiritual stuff of our faith, but they're just looking for a language to express it in and have it expressed to them. And so for me, that's the pop culture element, to bring it in. It doesn't mean that you can't get really deep and Jesus-y about stuff, but you have to have a landing pad first. You have to have a place to kind of start with them. And a lot of times that's just, talking about the latest Marvel film or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I look for those opportunities. So I do like getting out of bed and seeing, how can I make this connection or that connection? And sometimes it impresses me with my own cleverness and that kind of stuff. But ultimately it's the Holy Spirit already speaking, obviously in our faith, but also working through other people who are creating art, wherever that might be.
Where do you see it most effectively done? Where have you seen like the through lines of faith and fantasy done particularly brilliantly?
Well, we can force it into certain things and do that, which is certainly valid. I think that's a valid approach. But there are some products of art and creativity that almost purposely do it, and certainly one of them is Tolkien's work. And if you read any of Tolkien's work, it's absolutely full of Catholic imagery, whether he wanted it to be that or not. And he certainly has said that he wasn't trying to create some kind of Catholic allegory or anything like that, but he had no other choice. And I think he really did have a gift, a charism of writing, because I was just saying this to somebody the other day, if he didn't have editors and other people around him, he never would have published anything, because all he did was write. And as he wrote, he was sort of discovering truths as he was writing. And I think that was really God using him and working through him. So when you look at the story, the Lord of the Rings, that whole trilogy there, that's got just deep Catholic meaning to it, and you could spend years just pulling it all out of that. So that's an easy example. But then you can see it in other science fiction things. I mentioned Doctor Who, for example. I don't know how much. I'm not very happy with the current incarnation of Doctor Who. Not because she's a woman. It's just that I think it's kind of taken a different direction that I haven't really been following. But from the traditional stuff, Doctor Who is a Time Lord who reincarnates basically when he dies. So he's immortal, and he has a particular interest in Earth and the people of Earth, and is trying to show them a broader world, a wider world, with an immense amount of compassion in protecting them and saving them, but also calling them to something better. So you see it in that. I mean, a lot of the writers currently are atheists, so it's certainly not deliberate on their part, but you can certainly see it because that's the character. I think the character is evolving away from that, and that's kind of what disappoints me. But certainly through the first 11 or 12 incarnations of them, it certainly has been the case. So I find it, I can probably find it in anything, just because I'm tuned that way to look. But certain things are deliberate.
Do you have a favorite piece of pop culture? Would it be, maybe Lord of the Rings, or like, what's your favorite piece of pop culture that you connect to the faith? And then also, what's the weirdest or maybe most unexpected piece of pop culture that you connect the faith to?
Well, my favorite part of pop culture, my favorite item of pop culture, I will say, is Star Wars. Just because it's been such an integral part of my life. I saw myself in it immediately, even as a 5-year-old kid, that kind of longing for adventure and all that sort of thing. And then you get involved in all of that. And so, but then there's the spiritual journey that these characters take, and the idea of the Force and God, and even in the new films, which were, a little more, they weren't as sophisticated in that way that the first 3 films were. The first 3 films being 4, 5, and 6. There's still that element of spirituality, of self-discovery, and of self-actualization that is necessary. The Force is necessary for that. It's necessary for them to see that, in the same way that our faith is necessary for that kind of self-actualization. So Star Wars, certainly, I would say, is probably, if I had to pick one and spend the rest of my life pulling it apart and delving into it, it would probably be that.
Which is like, I've jumped in on this a couple times where I look at The Mandalorian, and it's taken place like in the wake of Return of the Jedi, probably 5 to 7 years after.
Something like that. Yeah.
And like, one of the things I've noticed about the Disney version of Star Wars is that, like, in the wake of Return of the Jedi, there's not this through line of look at everybody converting to the faith, that kind of thing, but it's actually the light side's kind of dormant. Mm-hmm. Luke went off with his select few to build the church, and like when you're looking at The Mandalorian, they're talking about, and they're not really understanding the presence of the Force. They're not comprehending it. They just know that this little thing, the child, is unique through it all.
Baby Yoda.
That is fantastic.
I'm voting.
That's better than my show.
It's Baby Yoda. Yeah.
I appreciate that Baby Yoda is going for prez.
Top bill, yeah.
Mando's going to be the vice president.
Well, at 50 years old, he's more than qualified to run for president.
True.
Actually, considering the current political climate, he's a little underage for running for president, honestly.
Well, he's a Gen Xer. and I think he's ready to take over the world in an unassuming baby talking way.
Is Mando? What would Mando be? Is he a Gen Xer or is Mando a boomer?
He's not a boomer.
Yeah,
he's not.
I wouldn't call him a boomer.
Yeah, he wouldn't. He doesn't act like a boomer.
My guess is that he is also a Gen Xer.
Yeah, I would say that. I'm not going to stay.
Yeah, he does act like he doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
He acts like he doesn't care, but he does.
Yeah.
Very Han Solo-esque.
Yeah.
And then I guess what's the weirdest piece of pop culture that you think you could connect to the faith, or most unexpected that people would like? I talk about like wrestling or superheroes and connect it to Catholicism all the time.
Sure.
But like, and get weird looks from people. So like, what's one that when the second you're like, well, in this episode of, and then people just immediately are like, what are you talking about?
You know, I have used before the film, and this isn't sci-fi, but it's the film. Tom Hanks, Castaway.
Oh yeah,
Tom Hanks is alone. I use that to illustrate the Trinity, for the Holy Trinity, the Feast of the Holy Trinity, and how his yearning for community is part of his humanity, and it's because of that his humanity is, you know, the image of God in him, which craves community. And the fact is that he had to create something in order to have that community. And so we have and again, this isn't a perfect analogy because they never are, but, you know, he creates Wilson out of his own blood, you know, to have this bond of community, which is what the Holy Trinity is. And so, you know, somebody had told me, and I had never thought that a movie about one guy alone on the island would be illustrative of the Blessed Trinity, but there you are. So, you like I said, you can find it anywhere if you're tuned to look for it, and sometimes it takes a little theological training, but you know, you work hard enough at it. Matt's pretty good at it too. We've had conversations and stuff. So
even The Walking Dead, I've seen things.
Yeah.
I used The Walking Dead in a moral theology paper. It was my moral theology final, and I got 110 on the final. It was like all essays, and I did my entire essay about theology of The Walking Dead, and it was amazing. Shout out to Dr. William Hammett, who's one of my favorite teachers that I've ever had. But yes, The Walking Dead definitely has the early seasons. Walking Dead hasn't been doing much for a while now, but definitely at the beginning it was very, very much like that.
Yeah, I think
another good one, and I have to delve into it, is the Dark Crystal, the latest Dark Crystal.
Ooh,
series.
I haven't.
Beautiful stuff there. Beautiful stuff there.
Oh, you and I should do a separate pod on the Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
That would be make that an out of bed thing. You guys just do it, and I need to watch the Dark Crystal, and then I'll talk to you guys afterwards about it.
You'll probably just diss it and say that all the material around it is better, but
okay. That is an accurate thing. There are a lot of people in this world that would agree with me that Star Wars,
the Dark Crystal card games are better than the actual shows and movies.
Exactly.
The holiday special was better. I don't know.
I like the video games better.
Yeah, that's fair. I love the Dark Crystal video game. I'm just saying. I am not wrong about that. I think I'm playing it through what's the most recent Star Wars video game. I lost it in my head. Not Force Unleashed.
The one with
Fallen Order?
Fallen Order, yes. Fallen Order. And it's incredible. I love it so much. Hey, Frankie. Hi. Sorry. Can you take a picture?
She already did. She already posted it on Instagram.
I want her to take. I just got a new phone. But it's with the Pixel 4.
This couldn't be more.
Can you video him whining? That would be cool too.
Yeah,
that would
be... I don't cut anything out of this podcast. You are gonna have me whining in this podcast. I'm fine with that. I just got a new phone, and I like to make Frankie feel bad about the fact that I have a newer phone. And like when we're all hanging out with friends and people take pictures, somebody inevitably will say, "Oh, let's take it with Chris's phone." And so I like to point out to Frankie that I have a newer phone than her.
Here's what I'm going to remind you of. The last time we recorded an episode, I'm pretty sure you bragged about how awesome your last phone was and how iPhones were terrible.
I still think iPhones are terrible. That's not an iPhone. That's a Pixel 4.
Well, what do you got now?
That is a Pixel 4. I had a Pixel 3, and now I have the newer one.
Well, it must have been pretty bad.
Yeah. No, I'm
just going to needle you now.
I'm very clumsy, and I dropped it. And
I've had my iPhone 6 for 6 years now.
Anyway, I'm sorry I derailed the conversation. Everybody go play The Force Awakens. It's a very, very good game.
You mean Jedi Fallen Order?
There we go.
Fallen Order.
Force Awakens actually was a movie, which wasn't terrible.
Yes, let's gang up on Topher.
Play Fallen Order.
Yeah.
This episode is sponsored by
misnamed video games.
Yeah. Anyway, I have the big question that I wanted to ask Father Austin, because I think, like I said, this has been the most Catholic episode of the podcast we've had, and I've absolutely loved that because I think Matt and I have done a very good job of, like, we want people to know what gets us out of bed, but we do also want this show to be about the guest. And it's exciting because this is a time where what the guest is interested in and what gets him out of bed is a part of Matt and I's faith. So I think that is really exciting. And so this was
unavoidable. We invited a priest onto the podcast.
I know, and we're probably going to have more priests on this podcast, and I'm okay with that.
It is inevitable.
It is inevitable.
It is your destiny.
Anyway, the last question that I have for Father Austin,
yes,
is also from Megan Doyle, and her question. She had two questions. Her question is, what is your favorite thing about the Catholic faith? Can you pick one?
Daughter of a youth minister asking that kind of question, huh?
I love it. I love it. My favorite thing, and this is something that's always been an attraction to me, is the feeling of family that I have, at least that I have. I don't know if everybody feels this or not, but I feel very much at home in the church. Growing up, I went to St. Agnes in Catonsville. I went to the school there. It was my life. Everything we did centered around that. And I don't know how many people have that experience anymore, unless they have like family who are like professionally involved. But
you just nailed that, because it's me and my wife doing that.
Yeah, that's you. That's you right there. You got it. And it's a blessing. And I think your kids are gonna look back on that with a sense of
spite.
No, I don't know. Well, maybe, I don't know. For me, it's nostalgia. I don't know. It's something that it's very warm. The feelings of being there at church, serving mass, and I served mass when they told you when to show up, not when you signed up or said you'd be there. They told you were going to serve, and so we had. At the time, we had 13 masses on a weekend. So we had like 2 upstairs, 2 downstairs on Saturday, and then we had a bunch on Sunday, and they just rotated you through. So sometimes I had 7 p.m. mass downstairs on Saturday evening. Sometimes I had 12:45 mass, on a Sunday for the month, and then you would just show up. But yeah, I didn't care. What else was I going to do? I was 12. But, my parents taught pre-Cana. My dad was the principal of the junior high religious ed. I was an altar server. We were just so involved in that. And then, dad called bingo, stuff like that. And so, there, you don't get more Catholic than that. And the fact is that that's, for me, that's something that's always been home to me. And I feel it when I'm with our people, when we do that regardless of where I am now, because for me, when I was growing up, it was all centered on my parish, my particular parish. Now it's wherever I am, that is home. And that is something that I want people to feel. I want them to feel like they are home when they are in church, because you get that familiarity that comes with the things that people call boring about Mass, right? Regardless of where you go, how Mass is going to look. And I've experienced that around the world and felt at home. I've been in Prague. I think, is Czech a language? I think Czech is a language. They were celebrating Mass in Czech, and I don't have any idea what they were saying in particular, but I knew what they were saying because I was at Mass. And I felt home and I felt comfortable there. And that's something that has always been a really, really powerful draw for me in the church, that it's not about just so much just being with the same people in the pews. It's being there with Christ, who makes you family, who makes you all connected that way. And so my favorite thing about the church is that family aspect. And I don't mean that in some kind of hippie way where, we're all brothers and sisters and that sort of thing. It's just home. The fact that church is home, and it should be home for all of us, is something that I love. And, if I can facilitate that for people, if I can help people to feel that themselves, I'm a happy guy, because it was something that's made my life so much better. Regardless of what I would be doing, it's made my life so much better knowing that I have a place like that is home. And part of it is, I've had fortunate experiences in the church, but it's something that has been a part of my life since as long as I can remember. Being in church, participating in the life of the church. And it's not because of that I'm a priest, because God knows I resisted it long enough. But the fact that I'm a priest now means that I can actually try to make that happen again for other people. So the fact that church is home to me, and that I know that church is home to so many other people, is probably my favorite thing about it.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Is there, you have been, I think we have been anticipating having you on for a while now. So for us, it's been built up for a while when we were finally going to have you on. I don't know if it's been built up for you in your head at all, but is there anything that we didn't ask you that you thought maybe we would ask you, or that you're disappointed we didn't ask you?
I'm not disappointed at all. I don't think there's anything that it's your show. It's your thing. And so whatever you're going to ask, I'm going to answer, and, as best I can. So no, I don't think there's anything that I necessarily need you to ask me.
You're just going to pray that we don't go to hell after this.
I will pray that but I do that anyway, Matt.
Yeah. I also,
my life. You're one of my kids now, because I married you guys. So yeah. I have kind of a responsibility for you guys, because I said we would pray for you, and I take that seriously. Did. So that's been a real blessing for me as well.
Yeah, you follow through in the most genuine ways. Thank you.
I also want to commend you, Father Austin, because you are officially a part of the first episode that didn't have any cursing.
Heck yeah.
Yes. I was about to say something, and then I cursing.
He was about to use his F-bomb.
I was going to drop it just right there, just to let you know. No, see, it can be done, guys.
Exactly, you did great. We normally we have a Mary statue right there.
Oh.
That was gifted to us by my amazing mother-in-law, Rena Cirquetti. And I moved it.
And now you have a mule mug up there. Is that a copper mug?
Yeah, that's a Moscow mule mug from our wedding.
Great.
You tried to escape Mary and Jesus, and it didn't.
That was from our wedding. But I moved Mary because I was terrified that we would, I wasn't worried about Father Austin. I certainly wasn't worried about Matt. But myself, I was worried that I was going to curse, and Mary was going to be in the background. So I was just trying to I was like, if I do say anything, I want her to be in the other room.
I have a Lego Last Supper over here on my counter here. I can here. So some kind of holy thing was here. Whoops, that was bread.
That's great.
That was a plate. Never mind. So
That's
Jesus
wonderful.
was present at least.
That's beautiful.
Was it Judas that just pieced out?
Yeah, Judas left. It was nice.
That does remind me, Matt. Father Austin has showed us one of the coolest things that's behind him. Matt, do you have anything cool in your background that you would like to share?
This 1980s basement that has wood panel, and it was
Knotty Pine. Nice.
Yeah, it's where Stranger Things was filmed.
You have the D&D table somewhere down there too?
No, I actually have joysticks over here.
Oh,
I'm not even kidding. I wish I had an Atari, but it's like those plug-and-play Pac-Mans and those types of games, like Dig Dug.
Mm-hmm.
I got them for my kids because they were like, "Hey, get me a Nintendo Switch," and I was like, "No, here's a $24 Pac-Man."
I did see there was a father who like was forcing his kids to play through the history of video games. Like they couldn't play current video games until they had played every system that came before it. So they had to start with like the Atari and like go through every single video game before they got to like current stuff.
It's like, oh, now you're gonna play the E.T. game that killed the Atari game system.
Oh man,
you'd be hard pressed to find one because they're all buried in the Nevada desert.
That and the Superman game.
Yeah. So the most interesting thing that I'd like to share, is something that I know that Father Austin has because he just posted a picture of it.
Oh yes.
Drinking with the Saints. It is a lovely book that shares different saints, their feast days, history about them, and then what cocktail goes well with them.
Yeah. Fantastic book. Perfect for quarantine.
Exactly. For again, we don't have like not all of our guests are Catholic. So you might like to know that Catholics enjoy drinking. What do you have, Matt? What is that?
So you were asking me what was behind me, what was cool.
Yeah, what's cool?
These Return of the Jedi glasses from Burger
King nice.
In 1983.
Very nice.
Going even older than that. Well, this is also Return of the Jedi with the Ewok Village and C-3PO.
Yes.
And then going 1981 with the Great Muppet Caper.
I had one of those too, except they were on the big bus, the double-decker bus.
There you see the identical twins, Kermit and Fozzie.
Oh yeah, they got the hat on.
Yep, it's the hat. Once they have the hat on, you see it.
I'm trying to find another cool thing. I have one more cool thing to share. This is a picture of Frankie and I.
Nice.
And inside of it,
cool.
Frankie made this for me. She gave it to me. I don't know if it was for my birthday or for our anniversary, or what specifically it was for. But inside is another picture of us. That is a mini USB.
Ooh.
Well, it's a normal
Russian doll.
It's a normal size USB. And on the USB is bloopers of the engagement video that we made and put on YouTube. So I thought that's like my favorite thing that we own.
That is cool.
When this is uploaded to YouTube, we'll link that in the description.
Yeah, I'll put the engagement video in the description. The bloopers I will not. The bloopers are just for us. I had this brilliant idea when I proposed to Frankie that I wanted it to be like this big vlog. Father Austin vlogs are video version of those things you do called blogs.
Okay, yeah, I know.
He's done them.
You don't need to talk to me like that.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. I'm just
okay, millennial.
I apologize.
Yeah.
But I had this whole idea of like, oh, I want to vlog our day before I propose, and then I'll vlog the proposal. And my gift to Frankie was, here, now edit all this footage of your proposal.
Here's work.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you for saying yes. Here's
Exactly.
some work.
Exactly.
Here's a preview of our marriage.
She spent
Clean up my mess.
She spent hours working on the vlog. She did a great job. But at the end of it, we had a lot of footage that we didn't use, and she was lovely enough to put it onto a USB for us. So, yeah.
Man, oh man.
Anyway, Father Austin, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
This was so great. This was our first ever Zoom episode, our first ever video episode that is going to be recorded video wise and put out on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. So
wildly edited.
Yes, exactly.
Edit all the times when we touched our face out, because that's just bad example.
That'll be the blooper section.
Yeah.
I appreciate the days when us touching our face is the most embarrassing thing that happens on this podcast. So, but thank you so much, Father Austin. You are a priest, so you have a parish that you are in charge of. So can you plug the church? Where can people go to give money to your parish, or if they would like to watch Mass?
You can come to our Facebook page. We are Christ the King in Glen Burnie. Mm-hmm. So, but the Facebook page is actually Cristo Rey en Glen Burnie.
Okay.
It was set up in Spanish. However, it's bilingual. So you don't have to speak Spanish to go on. So Cristo Rey en Glen Burnie is our Facebook page. And ctkgb.org is our Facebook page, is our what do you kids call these things? Websites. That's what my website is. So ctkgb.org.
I'm on the internet.
Is on that internet. Yeah, it's there. So yeah, but we are streaming on Facebook. So every morning on Cristo Rey and Glen Burnie is where we are having Mass. So that's right now that's pretty much everything. I also put my homilies on JesusInDisney.com.
Those are on SoundCloud too, right?
Podbean.
Okay.
Podbean.
I think the diocese takes them and puts them on SoundCloud, but
yeah, Podbean is what we use for this podcast, so we're a big fan of that.
Okay.
But
we will hoping for a sponsorship right now.
Yeah, Podbean.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
You're doing a great job making lots of people hear the word of God.
Yeah, you're doing a lovely job, Podbean. Thank you so much.
You're talking like it's God hearing you.
Podbean is somewhere up. Well, they're around somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. There are a lot of things there are a lot of things
Podbean.
there. There are a lot of things up there before you get to God. Like, God is obviously the highest up there, but Matt, you have to understand that there's a lot of things up in the ether that aren't just God. So
there's the Holy Trinity and there's Podbean.
And there's Podbean. Those are the only things. Oh man. But
the beginning was Podbean.
And he was pleased.
Yeah. Oh jeez. Oh man.
This is going south. Man, I'm gonna start cussing now.
Nice.
Yeah, really. I'm gonna start cussing soon. Jeez. We'll link all of the stuff for your parish in the description below.
Great.
But thank you so much for coming on, Matt. Do you have any closing thoughts or questions for Father Austin?
I'm deeply appreciative of your friendship and the fact that you have made the time for this. And I'm looking forward to doing another Zoom with you very soon where we geek out more about Star Wars.
Sure.
And anything geek related, I'm down for. But I'm deeply appreciative for you taking the time to do this.
It's my pleasure, guys. Really, really thanks. I had a good time.
Good, because otherwise that would be the worst thing we could hear.
It would be very disappointing.
This was a terrible show.
This was really awful, guys. Never get that time back.
That's
honestly worse than you cursing. So
that's
what
I say every time I get in the car after the first season of the podcast. I was like, well, I'm never getting that back.
Fair.
It was a pleasure. It was just a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much, Father Austin. You have a lovely evening. And for everybody listening, I hope you're having a good time getting out of bed and staying inside. Please stay safe. Please do not go outside, especially because Governor Hogan just told us we're not supposed to. And if you're listening in a state where your governor didn't tell you not to, don't listen to your governor and stay inside. It's not safe to be running around all the time. Jeez.
Flatten the curve.
Flatten that curve. Bye.
Bye.